week. Okay, so this week's topic is what are the worst things happening in gaming right now? And I should put a disclaimer and say according to us, because we didn't put it out there to anybody else, which we should have, but we didn't. So who gives a shit? So you can start us off with one of the things that you fucking hate about gaming right now.
Well, I was just going to kind of go down the list of things we have here. We both agree that Fortnite is literally the worst thing happening in gaming right now.
Yes.
And all the sort of Me Too stuff that's come out of that. You know, everyone trying to make this Battle Royale game or add a Battle Royale mode to every fucking game. You know, we're in a different era when games like Call of Duty are not the industry leader of what's cool anymore, and they're actually copying Fortnite in this Battle Royale thing. Battlefield 5 even has a Battle Royale mode now. Yeah, I don't really care about that stuff for the most part. I mean, Fortnite is dumb. It's annoying. I can ignore it. I just don't play it. And all those Battle Royales, it just seems like a genre that I would be into. And I kind of like certain things about it. Like, I kind of liked Apex, but I kind of didn't. I kind of like PUBG, but I kind of didn't. I just don't think this is my genre, really. But I don't know. It doesn't really bother me too much. It's out there for some people, I guess. So
I think Battle Royale games are here to stay. This is like the new game mode that's going to be in everything. Just like Deathmatch. You know what I mean? It might even take over Deathmatch.
Well, I mean, it's not even a new mode. It just, for some reason, blew up with the way PUBG sort of rolled it out. Which I just don't, like I said, it's fine. We've had last man standing modes in games forever, but yeah, it is going to be a staple moving forward for sure.
So what about free-to-play games? Because for me, I've played a few in my time, but usually it's very vapid. Like I get over it so quickly because there's gates, right? You got to spend money to keep going. And there's been very few games that I truly like that were free to play. One of them being Path of Exile, which is an action RPG, and to me that's the best example of a good free to play game. Another one would be Heroes of the Storm, but other than those two, for me, I've never really liked free to play games. And the mobile scene is just, that's all it is. It's just all fucking free to play games. It's like a modern day arcade. Where they just wanted to keep dumping in coins to keep going, keep leveling up your player, and it keeps getting harder, and it just escalates, and it's just, I fucking hate this trend of free to play games.
I mean, what's so bad about it? I only really find it offensive on the phone, on the mobile side of things. I don't really care about it on console. It's just another thing. I just typically don't play those games anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. And I feel like the console versions or sort of console free-to-play games aren't the most egregious examples of this. The only ones I played were, like I said, I played a little bit of Apex beginning of the year for 2 weeks, and I played Warframe for a little bit, wasn't super into it. So there hasn't really been a free-to-play game that really grabbed me to begin with. It's not something egregious or offensive to me. I don't know. Free-to-play games exist. I don't play them. Like I said, they're only bad on phones, in my opinion. So I don't know. It's just not something that bothers me.
Well, I'll agree that consoles are fine for free to play games. You could totally ignore them. There's not too many of them. But for me, free to play came out, and then it gave birth to Fortnite. You know what I mean? And that's all anybody fucking plays. So for me, who's been a lifelong gamer, and I try to talk to people that are playing games and whatever, and they're like, "Oh, all I play is Fortnite." I just it's almost like me versus them now. Because it's they're a gamer too, but they only play one fucking game. So I can't even have a conversation with them because they play this super simplistic game that we've seen for years that's evolved into just now you fight 50 people or 100 people at the same time or whatever. It's just, I don't know. I think it's probably the evolution of the Call of Duty player base anyway, but I don't know. There's different factions for me of or tiers of gamers, and I'm not in the upper echelon. I'm not saying I'm amazing or anything, but I play everything. I have the knowledge. I know the trivia. I could talk about anything to do with the game industry and all that. But when somebody's "Oh, you game, bro? Oh man, bro, I play Fortnite, bro. You play Apex, bro," and it's just fuck off. You're fucking annoying. You're not a gamer. Get out of my face. You know what I mean? It just pisses me off.
Well, you're the one being an asshole. I'm usually the one that's an asshole. No, I get what you're saying. We've always had those people. You always had the people that just played Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty and Madden. We've always had those like gamer dude bros that they just play like the cool bro shit that's like super fun and yeah, man, it's the hot shit. But to be fair, the Battle Royale genre was kind of kicked off by PUBG, which was a game. And Fortnite wasn't even a Battle Royale game when it launched.
Yeah, that's true.
But the key to its success was probably the free-to-play thing. I'm just kind of surprised it hasn't actually died off because like Apex is like not doing very well now. Kind of I've heard like a lot of their player base is dropping off. A lot of the people that stream these Battle Royale games, like Dr. Disrespect and stuff, they're kind of like over it. Some of them have gone back to like PUBG and playing a little bit more Fortnite. But yeah, so I don't know. It's just like, like I said, I don't really care. Like if a game's free to play, that's fine. And all these people that do their own thing. I mean, I think we're starting to see as we get older, as video games are getting more broad and more people are playing them. It's definitely not like it was when we were growing up, where when you told someone you're a gamer, like you all felt like you were a part of this like unique sort of cult of like people that were all had very similar interests and played similar games because there weren't as many games back then, and we all kind of played the same things. But now, I mean, you can have all these different people that just play different things, and I don't really identify with a lot of gamers these days, to be honest with you. I mean, because there's just so much stuff to play anyway. And then, like I said, I'm not even into this Battle Royale stuff. I don't really get into multiplayer games that much anymore. And so, yeah, it's just different factions. We're just a different breed, and we're just kind of into different things because we're older and we came from different time. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. You're always going to have the youngins in their damn thing. Like I was the same way when Call of Duty came out and everyone was playing Call of Duty. And I'm like, fuck these people, man. Call of Duty sucks. So I don't know. But we're always going to be that old man standing on his porch yelling at the damn Fortnite kids and their floss dance.
But at least there's a barrier to entry. You had to buy the game. Now it's like nobody buys their kid any games. It just comes with like a Fortnite new player package, and they just bought the console that it came with, and that's all the kids playing. And because it's free. Yeah. It's technically free, but then the kids buying all these fucking skins and dance emotes. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just not. I'm not as hateful about this as you are, apparently. I'm not as much hateful as I am interested in wondering why it's so popular. Is it because it's free and people are fucking cheap, or is it because it's social and accessible and people are just picking it up, so their friends are picking it up, and then another friend picks it up, so they're playing together because it's free. No one has to spend $60 or $90 Canadian or whatever to get this fucking game. It's just every decade or so, man. There's like the one thing that comes out. It was Halo before, and then it was Call of Duty, and now it's the Battle Royale thing with like Fortnite and all that stuff. It's just.
But what about the player base? Like, how many people played Halo? How many people are playing Fortnite? That's what I'd like to see, those numbers matched up.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I swear, since it's free, it's out of control. I know it. I know because it's free. People are playing it.
To me, the amount of people playing it is not that surprising. It's that it's still fucking popular that's surprising to me. Like, people have not moved on from this yet. Because like I said, some people have kind of moved on from PUBG. That's always going to have its player base. But like Apex is not doing very well. And I don't really know about a lot of these other free-to-play Battle Royale games. But I'm just surprised, that people are still invested in Fortnite. But it's whatever.
Fine. Fuck Fortnite. I fucking hate it. Ever since that kid in the store walked in front of me as I was looking at garden hoses and started doing the floss dance and just repeatedly did it while I was trying to look at something, I was like, fuck this game. Fuck.
Yeah, well,
like, it's ruining our kids. These kids are so stupid. They're so fucking dumb. Oh.
Well, I'm with you.
Oh, I'm mad.
I'm so mad.
I'm fucking furious now.
But I have a weird relationship to the floss dance, in that, like, I'm guessing it came from Fortnite first, but since I wasn't playing it, I don't know. My first interaction or experience with the floss dance was actually in Destiny 2. Like, I remember unlocking that dance, and for like a month, That's all like Magnum and everyone else wanted to get, because I would just be doing that floss dance everywhere, and we all thought it was hilarious, and I loved it. And then Fortnite fucking ruined it.
I don't know if Fortnite ruined it. I think it existed a little bit before Fortnite. I don't know the origins of it. I don't give a fuck.
But yeah, as far as where it came into games, I can't tell if it came up in Destiny first or it was Fortnite. I would have to go back and look. But like I said, that was my first experience seeing it was in Destiny 2, and I thought it was hilarious, and I thought it was fun. It was my favorite emote to do in Destiny. But then once like it became like a thing where everyone was doing it, and it was all associated with the Fortnite children, then I was like, oh, fuck this shit.
I just want like my child and other kids to not be fucking dumb, because I feel like I wasn't dumb when I was growing up.
Well, you shouldn't have had a kid.
No, my kid will be fine. But when I see other kids, they're just so brain dead because of these fucking games. Like maybe the disorder thing that just came out for video games is like legit. Like they all need to be medicated now.
Well, you're saying that, but you know your kid is not old enough to be out there like socializing and doing things like playing Fortnite. So don't worry, you're gonna hate it eventually. I feel it.
All right, let's move on from this. Let's do microtransactions.
So
this is another thing. I don't find these too bad either, because I don't spend a lot of money after I've purchased the game. There's sometimes I'll buy extra things. I don't normally buy DLC because I'm already done with the game. But it's in every fucking game now. Every game has these nickel and dime shops set up to just get new shit, more XP, more gold, different shoes for your fucking player that you don't even notice when you're running around. Like it's out of control.
Yeah, I mean, microtransactions don't really bother me either. Like I said, I don't really spend anything. It's only, we've discussed this on the podcast I believe before, but it's only if it's a game that I really like, and I feel like I just want to show the developers a little bit more appreciation. Like if I've put like 50 hours into a game or something like that, and I look at the store and there's like this cool armor or something, maybe I'll buy it or whatever if I'm really digging the game. But yeah, for the most part, I'm like you. By the time DLC rolls around, most of the time I'm done with the game, not going back to it, and I just don't really care about all this other stuff. Like I was dumb last year and bought the whatever Ultimate Edition fuck off thing for Far Cry, where you got like the 3 DLCs, and then I never went back and played them, even though they look kind of cool. So I don't bother with that stuff. But I mean, it can be a very egregious thing. So the example I had written down here to talk about as far as this was what started all of this hoopla about we might have to put loot boxes and shit, make laws and fucking shit around this, was when Battlefront 2 came out, and it was literally the most horrendously bad sort of loot boxy pay to win bullshit that I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know if you played that game or if you were familiar. I'm pretty sure
I read about it.
Yeah, there's no way if you were following games during that time you weren't aware of what was going on. But just to break it down, they had these things in the game called star cards that you could earn through play, but could also be bought with real money. And they basically add buffs to your character, so you could literally pay to be more powerful in the game. I think some people estimated that if to play to get all this stuff would take 4,000 plus hours to get most of the stuff just through normal play, or you could spend about $2,100 on loot boxes. So it was just really bad because, I mean, unless you were playing day one and you were dedicated, there, like, for you to pick it up after the fact, you're going to be coming into a game where everyone is more powerful than you, just right off the bat. So you're going to be at a disadvantage, and so it's just horrible. And then you have like different individual character classes in that game that you would have to level up individually, but that also fed back into the problem of like, well, I don't want to like mix and match the different characters that I'm playing because I want to level up one so I can get this one character more powerful. So it kind of even limited the way you would play the game, because you would kind of maybe stick to one character class for most of the time you were playing to level it up. So it really didn't benefit like casual players, which sucks. And I ended up buying the game. I pre-ordered it long before it came out. It's one of those like ones I really wish I didn't, because I was excited about the single player, which is also pretty trash. And it just, I never even bothered touching the multiplayer. You know, I played the first Battlefront for, I don't know, 2 to 4 weeks on the PlayStation 4, and it's not the greatest multiplayer experience, but it was pretty fun, and I would have loved to play more. But once I saw all the stuff they were doing with the multiplayer with this pay to win shit and all that, I was just like, I'm not even touching this. And I know they made it better over time, but this was just one of the most just awful things that's ever happened. Like, this is like the full end of the scale of just like the worst things you could do to ruin a game with microtransactions and loot boxes, which, you know, sort of led to like, there's been a lot of stuff in the last week about this. Let me find it here. So like, a Senator Josh Hawley was trying to introduce this bill to the United States Senate that would ban loot boxes and pay to win microtransactions in certain games, which are trying to sort of it's called the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act, and the wording suggests that it will target sort of games played by minors. And this is like one of the discrepancies about it, where it's just like, I mean, most kids play like mature games or whatever. Like, how are you going to know? Like, every game is you're probably going to have some minors that get a hold of it, whether it's a sibling that's older in their house or parents that just don't give a shit and buy them whatever. So I don't know how you would really enforce this. And like, is it up to developers to determine if they were like aware of like, oh, we didn't know minors were going to be playing our game? Like, of course they would be. So there's just like a lot of weird things with the wording of this. But there's been other countries that have, you know, declared loot box stuff like, you know, like gambling, basically. Like, it's illegal in Belgium. It falls under like gambling laws and stuff like that. So there is some precedence for this, but I just think it's kind of crazy that it got so, like, this Battlefront 2 thing got so out of control that like politicians started paying attention to it, and this whole like gambling aspect to it, which I don't really fully agree with. I don't know. Like, what do you think about all this?
I think what EA did is horrible business practice and so exploitive. You know what I mean? Like, it is so unnecessary to just like, it's almost like you built a game to just fleece people of money. You know what I mean? Just like fleece them right the fuck down, get every penny out of them, because they're going to get addicted to this, and they're going to get addicted to the game loop, and they're just going to want to keep spending money or get further ahead because other people are further ahead. So to catch up, they're going to spend money, and they're just going to it's horrible. It's just a horrible business practice to even take it that far, because, you know, people don't have the self-control, or a lot of people don't even have the time to keep up with like their friends or keep up with other people, because people get jealous. People see that other people have stuff they don't, so they're going to go out and go get it too because they want to be noticed or seen, or they don't want to be made fun of or whatever. So it's like this, there's this pressure, this undue pressure to try and catch up or to perform or to like be as good as everyone else. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it's playing on people's psychological issues.
Yeah, but I think we had to get here to like see what the edge looked like, and but I don't know. What do you think about the sort of laws being built around this? Because we've always had the sort of the ESA, you know, the Entertainment Software Association, which is supposed to be like the people that sort of lobby on behalf of video games, at least in the U.S., so that the government doesn't get like fully involved in video games, which I'm all about that, but. So what do you think about, you know, the fact that some of this stuff is like borderline like gambling? I just don't know if I fully see it that way, but I get the argument for it.
Loot boxes are gambling. I agree that those are, because you don't know what you're getting. There's chance involved. So that's gambling. And I think when it comes to minors or younger players, even teenagers who like don't have their own job yet and are using their parents' credit cards and stuff, these companies are preying on those people. Those like, and some people are whales, as they're called, right? Where they just spend so much money on these like stupid fucking free to play games, and they're just throwing money like crazy to keep this game afloat. And it's predatory. I think laws should be passed for it. I don't know the age limit or how you would set that in place to like prevent people from having this happen to them. Like, because you can always have an adult who's not paying attention still give a minor the stuff, just like they would give them that video game they shouldn't be playing, or renting the movie for them, like back in the day for us, you know, that we shouldn't be watching. or whatever. Like, it's, I don't know. I think something needs to be done about it. I've never experienced it because like my daughter's way too young and we grew up with it, so we're older, and I haven't heard anybody's family get completely destroyed by like some loot box controversy, but I think something should be done about it.
Yeah, well, I think as long as I think it should be more on the side of the console makers and the game makers to have maybe even like parental controls in some of these games, like stuff where you could set. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff here, like I said, because I don't have kids, I don't look at this stuff, I don't know anything about it. I know some of this exists, but I don't know about for stuff like this. But making it where you couldn't, just buy something on a credit card, even if there's a credit card tied to like an Xbox Live account that your kid's playing on or something like that. If you could just restrict it where nothing could be allowed to be purchased without a password that only the parent would know or whatever. I just think there's other ways to go about this, because there's part of me that's like, I would love the government to fuck these stupid game companies like EA into the ground over this shit, because fuck them and these stupid practices. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't want the government getting involved in video games or really anything. So I'm kind of two minds about it. I'm trying not to be sort of on the emotional side, just like, yeah, pass these fucking laws and fuck EA and all these other motherfuckers doing this shit. But I don't think that's the right answer. And I still don't feel that a lot of the politicians that are sort of pushing this and involved in it really have the bigger picture or the full scope of what all this means. I think they're just being told stuff by their constituents and some of their people that work around them. There's a lot of secondhand stuff, because I don't know if you read that interview on Kotaku last week where it was Jason was basically interviewing that I guess it was Senator Josh Hawley about this, and he seemed to just like, he was invested in it, but it seemed like a lot of secondhand sort of accounts of things, and like I just didn't feel like he was the right person to be sort of pushing this forward. I don't know.
Well, something needs to be done, and if this is just starting out and it's going to pick up steam, I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, this is one of those examples of consumers pushing back, and I think whatever happens from this, because now you're seeing EA and a lot of these other companies, even though they still have microtransactions and stuff in their games, they're at least pulling that back a little bit and knowing that gamers aren't going to put up with this shit, because like basically every game EA talks about now, like the first thing they say up front is like, there's going to be no microtransactions, or it's only going to be cosmetics. We even had, like, when Apex came out, like the reason they didn't even announce that game before they dropped it was they didn't want the baggage of being an EA game. And so everything you see, like when Respawn's going to be coming out with that Star Wars game later this year, the first thing they said was like, no microtransactions, like literally none. This is a single player game. You buy the game and that's it. So it's like they have to come out and say this stuff now.
Well, what was the game that said it wasn't going to have microtransactions, and then it was slowly introduced after? Wasn't there a game that did that? I can't remember who did it.
Oh, there's been a lot of like people. There's a lot of egregious business practices going on now. Like these companies not sending out review copies to these establishments, so they can't like review things before it's out. I can't remember the exact game that you're talking about, but there's been a few that have done that. Like even Red Dead did that to a certain degree. You know what I mean? Like they said, like, oh, well, the multiplayer's in beta, so that would be so all the reviewers would review it like very high and be like, well, this isn't finished yet. And then I can't remember. I guess Red Dead did have like day one microtransactions, or did it? I can't remember now. I should know this. I really should.
No, it didn't have the gold shit. The gold shit came later.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, but I couldn't remember. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people doing this kind of stuff now.
Because in Red Dead, what happened was everything was super fucking expensive in the catalog. Like things were like insanely priced, and it's like you got to play forever for this shit. So they changed some of the pricing in it to make it more accessible. But then I think around that time, that's when they started introducing the gold bars. So that was like after the fact. So maybe that's the example I was thinking of. I don't remember, but it's just so dirty.
Yeah, like, I think Call of Duty's done that too, and
like fuck off.
I feel like it's a lot of this stuff now where people want to get that high Metacritic score when they release a game, and they want to have like glowing reviews. So they're holding back on rolling out this stuff. So yeah, that's another problem.
Well, then you have people just bombing, like review bombing shit when something happens.
Yeah, which is so dumb.
Yeah, that's dumb too. It's equally stupid. Anyway, let's move on from that stuff. I like loot boxes as long as you don't have to pay for them. I like the randomness stuff. If you can earn everything in the game and you have loot boxes on top of that to give you extra shit, then I'm for it. As long as you don't have to pay and as long as it's not bullshit.
Agreed.
All right, so something that I don't care for, I don't know what your take's going to be on this, but like major players in the gaming industry pushing for things to be digital basically are essentially killing like physical ownership of games.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge problem as we're moving into the digital era. Is what do you actually own? Like,
I get why they're doing it. I get they want more control. They can control the market, how much things are selling for, because like you can go on Amazon and get a game that's been out for maybe like 2 months for like 60% off, but the sale on like the Xbox game store would only ever be like 40%. You know what I mean? Or it's even more than that. So I see why they're moving toward digital, and it probably saves developers and stuff a lot of money to not have to print physical copies. But you've run into this in the past, and you've mentioned on the podcast, where the second the service goes down or you can't connect to the internet or whatever, all the shit that you bought that was digital is gone. You can't access, you don't have access to it anymore. It's just gone.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge problem. I mean, that's part of the reason why I have an external hard drive hooked up to my Xbox. So every game I buy, I'm just like storing them on there, and I'm not deleting them. Now, some of that stuff is not going to change whether you need internet access to be able to play these games. But yeah, I mean, it is a problem, and we're just getting to a place where some of these games, because they're more multiplayer focused, if you don't have people playing it, the game's essentially dead. And but that's kind of a whole another topic. But yeah, I mean, I'm just not totally down for this digital shit. I mean, most of the time it doesn't matter. It's just a case by case thing for me. I still buy physical as much as possible, but I mean, you're buying a physical disc and you're putting it in, and it's downloading at least part of the game, if not most of it, from the internet anyway. So
yeah, it's true.
I don't know.
I like to own like the actual copy of stuff. Like I like to hold it. I like to open it. I like to put it into my machine. Having something digital just feels like nothing. It's like air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't actually have anything.
I mean, I'm the same way. I just I can't get over that collector mentality that was just apparently something from our generation, that we just grew up collecting toys and action figures and baseball cards and whatever else. And so, I feel like that's just like becoming a relic of the past as we're moving digital. But there are occasionally some benefits. I mean, some of these digital sales are usually pretty good. And also a little lesser known thing that you can do with the Xbox in particular, and you can do this with like Steam games and stuff, like where they have the Steam sharing, where you can share your account with other people and play games. On Xbox, if you account share with someone else, you can play all their digital games basically. So like if I logged into your Xbox, or you logged my account into your Xbox and set your Xbox as my primary. Okay, so I'm getting confused trying to explain this.
Figure this out.
All right, so you would take my account, put it on your Xbox, and set my account as the primary account on your Xbox. And so then I would do the same thing with your account, where we would have both accounts on both Xboxes, but I would take your account, put it on my Xbox, and say, this Xbox is Cynther's primary Xbox. And then me and you can play each other's digital games. So you can game share like that, but you can only do it with digital games. So there's like little weird benefits to digital sometimes like that.
I didn't know about that. I wonder what the criteria is for that. Like, how many systems can it go on? Like, what happens if...
I think it's just two. It's only two, because basically you would just share it with one other person. So like I said, me and you would be sharing each other's games. So it's only between two people. But I have quite a few friends that do that.
Oh, sounds sexual.
Yep, it's very sexual. So I don't know. It could be something we should experiment with that one day. But
you won't play anything that I have.
Well, I mean, it's just like I said. I don't know how much your stuff is digital, and it's probably stuff that I either already have or I'm interested in. I don't know. There could be a use case for it. The one thing I don't remember though which I think this is true, but like on Steam, if you do the game sharing thing, like the person can't play, like both of you can't play the game at the same time. It has to be either or. But I think on Xbox you both can play the game. So I don't know.
Oh, that's weird.
So that might be a way in the future. Like if there's a game that one of us buys, it's maybe even co-op. Like almost like we did with that A Way Out, where I bought one copy of it and we both were able to play it. I don't know. Just it might be something
they
to
had
look
that
into.
set up for that though.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying like that would be like, it would be like how that experience was essentially.
Okay, so here's something that's totally new in the last few years, where developers have been changing things due to fan outrage, because everybody needs to voice their opinion now, so that when the consumer speaks, everyone needs to listen.
Yeah, which is a double-edged sword, because I feel like there's a lot of faux outrage out there, a lot of people like that are full of shit, and a lot of people with bad opinions and bad ideas for how games should be. But at the same time, there's always examples like, as we've seen, like, even though it's not a game, sort of game related, when we were talking about Sonic last time and how they're redesigning Sonic. I mean, it's a movie and it doesn't ultimately matter. But there are examples. I mean, even getting back to what I was saying earlier with Battlefront 2, like all the outrage over the microtransaction of that, like that's a proper outrage to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's too many examples of the other where it's just people being stupid. And I don't have it pulled up right now, but I don't know if you saw the stuff going on with this Catherine re-release game. Do you know anything about that?
No, I think I heard something, but I've never played the game and I didn't read the article.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't following it like super close, but I don't know. Are you familiar with that game at all? Did you play it before? It was like a 360 and PS3 game.
No, I've
never played it either. But I don't know. Apparently, there was some outrage over something being transphobic. Like people misinterpreted a translation of a line from like the Japanese game that's going to be, or the Japanese version, I think. Like I said, I don't have all these facts in front of me here, but it was something that was like not true, and like there was all this outrage on Twitter about this thing, and people being like, this game is transphobic. And so it wasn't even true. It really was like the line or the character situation was just mistranslated or something like that, and people went crazy, and so they changed something for absolutely no reason. And then you saw after the fact, people just being like, this is really not what happened. This is really not what the character said, or like the implied character development point. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me. I wasn't following it super close, but it was one of those examples of just people being stupid and ready to just have their pitchforks about anything, especially when it comes to transgender issues and gay people and all that other stuff. Like they're just ready to like strike about that kind of stuff. Like any hint of being homophobic or transphobic or anything like that, the people are just ready to strike about that stuff.
It's ridiculous, because I'm an ally, like I want these things to be brought to light. It's just the few that are ready to just cock the pistol and just they're ready to go at any second to just like guns blazing. Like just relax. Like I don't have time to like go to war every fucking day over everything. You know what I mean? Like my life is annoying and stressful enough than to like take up arms over some like ridiculous labeling of something or misinterpretation or a slip of the tongue or whatever. Like there's no forgiveness either. Like the second somebody says anything, like they're burned at the stake. Like it's a witch hunt again. And I think people need to calm down and just be like, look, we need to be civil about this. And like, if someone's an asshole, fine. Just don't blow it out of proportion. Just they lose their job maybe over whatever they did if it's necessary or whatever. I don't have a good example, but like it's just everyone's nuts about this shit, and then journalism takes it to a whole new level by reporting on it constantly and like stoking that flame and getting people riled up for the outrage, and it's just exhausting. It is so fucking exhausting.
And that's going to be a whole nother topic we're going to do at some point of like games journalism and all these outlets and stuff like contributing to this faux outrage. But the other example I was going to give, and I don't remember the game, and I should have had all this written out beforehand, but some of this is just coming to me in the moment. But do you remember that PC game from like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago? It was like a crowdfunded RPG or something, I think.
Leisure Suit Larry?
No. But it had like trans characters in it. and people were saying like, you know, it was offensive to trans people, but come to find out that I think it was some of the like sort of highest backers of the game got to write their own stories for the game.
Yeah,
so it was actual trans people writing their own personal experiences about being trans, and it was in the game, and people were outraged because they didn't know. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about right here. Like, you don't even know that that's a trans person's experience, so why are you fucking getting all up in arms about it? You know, it was like literally a trans person's stories contributed to the game.
I love those stories. You know what I mean? Like, it's like justice served. Like, you're a fucking idiot and you got handed.
Yeah, those are the best because it's over and done immediately.
Yeah,
because you can't really argue that. You can't argue with them, so it's just done and over with, and you look like a fool. And this is why people just don't pay this shit any attention, and we all just sit around and mock and laugh at this stuff anymore. And it's a shame that we can't take these issues seriously anymore because everything is a fucking issue now.
It just reminds me of like a dog sitting at the window, and the second anybody walks by, it just starts going berserk, barking at the person. And then calms down. Like, anything that comes in their view has to be attacked or barked at. Anyway, so I have some other examples here. A really old one, Mass Effect 3's ending. Remember that shit?
That's a good one. I feel like that was like ground zero for the beginning of this shit in a way.
I feel like that was one of the earliest, maybe one of the first. And of course it's EA. EA's involved in it, but it was interesting. Like, the ending of a game had to be changed and patched in to fix it.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the end for BioWare, I think. I don't know if they really ever... I mean, I guess people like Dragon Age Inquisition, all right, but I feel they've been sort of on the downturn after Mass Effect 3. But yeah, I remember that being a big...
EA getting involved. That's what it is. I don't think it's BioWare's fault entirely. It's just they got someone else's hands up their ass.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I blame EA for this one. This was, I mean, the creators of the game put in that terrible ending. It's their fault. Okay. I mean, it was, to me, I don't know. We could go into a whole discussion, and it's not fresh in my mind. I don't really remember the ending too strongly. I just remember it seemed to be kind of universal that it was not good. So that was one of those where it's like, I don't know, I kind of went back and forth on it. Like, I didn't hate the ending. I also did not really like it at all. But I'm kind of one of those people that usually sides with the artist on a lot of this stuff. Like, you shouldn't be forced to change your art because other people sort of think they want to take ownership of it. Like, I get that we all went through this 3-game story arc with a character that we were really invested in, and given the nature of, you know, it being an RPG that we were all super into, like, I get that you do have some ownership over your character and you wanted all of your choices to matter at the end. But at the same time, yeah, just like getting mad at a bunch of people and saying like, no, change your story. I didn't fucking like it. Like, even though it was bad, I still don't like that mentality. I don't know. What do you think about that?
We've talked about it before, where people are just too fucking entitled and they got to say something about it. And like art, it's like you said, art is art. It's up to the person or people who created it. You know, you're along for the ride. You consume that art. You don't tell someone to change their fucking painting, or to like if someone's building a house, to like lay the house out a different way. You don't tell an architect to change his design. That's his fucking work, unless like you paid him to do it. And like, I don't know. It's just, it is so strange.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but this is kind of an interesting way we can sort of, we don't have to right at this moment. We can sort of segue into the last parts of this topic, because this is sort of an interesting way to bounce to the different things. But I feel like this also was sort of the beginning of game developers listening to fans more, but like in a way that sort of leads to, you know, like the early access games. Like, oh, we just want constant fan feedback the whole time, so the fans can help us make our game, which is not a bad idea. I'm not shitting on that. But I feel like that was sort of the beginning of game developers not being confident in the products they're putting out, and very warranted in some cases. You know, I mean, people are putting out trash that's clearly egregious business practices and games that aren't finished and all this stuff that's unbalanced. But I feel like that was sort of the beginning of this era of like crowd-funded games and early access games and all this kind of stuff, where you're creating the game alongside us and all this other stuff. So I don't know.
Okay, so we'll talk more about early access in a second, but I had some other examples here. You'll love this one, and that is, if you'll remember that Peter Dinklage voiced Ghost in Destiny, right?
Yeah.
And then they fucking hired someone else and re-recorded all that character's lines because Peter Dinklage just like phoned it in. Like that. Yeah. That to me is hilarious.
That's one of the funniest. That's one of the funniest things that's ever happened in video games, in my opinion. Because, in my opinion, first off, Peter Dinklage, great actor, love him on Game of Thrones, but he's not like a voice actor. That's the first time that I recall him doing a voice for a video game, and not. You have to take into account the fact that Destiny 1 was a huge dumpster fire to begin with. Like, that game was cut up and rearranged and went through a horrible development cycle. Like, the game was literally like completely rearranged and changed like 9 months before it came out. So I'm sure in a different context, like, some of his lines maybe made sense when the story was different or certain things about the game were different. But I feel like they just sort of like mix and match a bunch of like, missions and like, okay, well, now you're going to this planet first instead of this planet. So I feel like a lot of his lines were just like put up in a blender, and like, so they probably, I just feel like, he probably didn't have great direction, and he wasn't like known as a voice actor, and he probably had no clue like the material he was working with. And I don't know, it just like, it made like, of course it made more sense to have Nolan North come on after the fact, like after they already know what the game is, and he can like brush it up a little bit and like polish it up. And that was a crazy thing, but I don't remember it being an outrage. It was just like one of those things, like people like just made fun of it though. But yeah, I guess it was enough where Bungie wanted to change it, which is just insane to me. Like, I don't know, it was kind of endearing in like a shitty way. Like, that wizard came from the moon. Some of the other stuff he would say is like fucking famous line. Like, they literally sold T-shirts with that fucking phrase on it in the Bungie store.
Yeah, it's a strange example. And it's probably just easier to hire someone to re-record things so the story makes sense again than to try and like go through all of Peter Dinklage's stuff and fix it. And he's busy doing other shit that pays him way more. So why would you even get him back to do other stuff? He didn't care to do it too much, or he just couldn't get into the character of a flying robot thing. I don't know.
I think that's why they finally killed off Cade 6, like Nathan Fillion's character in the game, because they had to bring him back every time they did new DLC or a new game, and it just became a issue of like, he's a real actor with real jobs. Like, he likes his video game stuff, but it's difficult to get someone like that back in the studio every time you're putting out new content, especially if they're a major character. Mm-hmm. But the story of Destiny has always been shit anyway, so I don't know why anyone gave a fuck to begin with.
Well, it's unfortunate.
I know people like Magnum are all into the grimoire and the like outside of the game shit that's way more interesting than anything in the game. But it just seemed like a dumb thing. It's like, I don't feel like it really helped the game in any significant way to change the voice actor. I don't know. But it's kind of weird that, like, I'm sure there's playthroughs on YouTube that you can find. But I think it's also just kind of funny, and this sort of almost kind of ties back into the digital thing where games are patched and stuff out now. But you can never play a version of Destiny with Peter Dinklage's voice in it now. You know what I mean? Like, it's just erased from time, basically. Like I said, I'm sure there's plenty of YouTube videos, but like, it's just a weird thing where that's just a version of Destiny that you can never play. So I don't know.
Yeah, because it's online, right? So it's impossible to just play the disc version. It would just get patched instantly. So yeah, you're right. So another example is the outrage Call of Duty got for like continually going in the like advanced modern warfare direction. And what ended up happening was they had to go back to like the World War II setting because there's a trailer on YouTube that was getting like insane amounts of dislikes.
Which that to me was like dumb, in my opinion. I think most people tend to like the modern warfare side of Call of Duty. They don't really like all this weird sci-fi running on walls. But I think a lot of people also don't care. Like, oddly enough, that was like one of my favorite Call of Duty games like ever was Advanced Warfare, like, or at least the single player. I didn't play the multiplayer. I don't ever play the multiplayer in those games. And then even the World War II one that came out a couple years ago, the single player of that was fun to me. So those were oddly enough like some of my favorite Call of Duty games. So it's like two different ends of the spectrum there. But yeah, that was just kind of a weird outrage. Like, how dare it be too sci-fi in the future? How dare you?
Like, we've had enough. We've had enough of this fucking line of thinking with advanced shit. We want to go back to when there was nothing and guns were inaccurate. But in a video game, they're fucking perfectly accurate all the time.
I mean, at a certain point, like I kind of get it. Like, you know, you can get a little bit too much.
Sure.
With like for like Halo, for example, like a lot of people like this game, and it's my least favorite. But I don't like Halo Reach, like especially the multiplayer, and it's because they try to make it too Call of Duty-ish, and like they had loadouts and like, you know, different, like you played the Spartans versus the elites, and it just sort of changed the game too much, and it didn't have the same like Halo feel, in my opinion. And like, so I get like changing like a formula that works too much. Like now that, you know, sort of 343 has gone back to like sort of the roots of Halo, and there's still people out there that don't like Halo 4 and 5. I'm not one of those people, but I get it. Like, you know, you're going to keep putting out a game annually, year after year, like Call of Duty, which literally has had like, I don't know, a game every year since like 2003 or 4, I believe. And so, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like at a certain point, you can't keep fucking with a formula that works. So I get it to a certain degree. I mean, I've been there. I wasn't happy with some, like I said, decisions that were made with Halo. Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like a weird thing to get like super up in arms about. But I don't know.
I don't like the reskinning of games, especially like that's why I'm not a big sports game guy. But to me, like they could easily just patch the game every year so that the lineups and teams change, because the game doesn't fundamentally change every year. It changes every like 4 or 5 years, where like the mechanics are different, but it's the same fucking game every year.
Yeah, well, there's been people saying that for a long time now. Things should just be a product you buy every like 5 years or once a generation, maybe a couple times a generation, and just update them. But I don't know. I guess they still want to try to sell you that $60 game every year. You know.
Well, it's.
I mean, we're even seeing this with Call of Duty. Like even last year, you know, they had the Battle Royale mode, but they also took out the single player. And then I think for a little while, you could just buy the game like piecemeal. Like you could just buy the multiplayer or just play the Battle Royale mode, I believe. But there's always been talks about, should we, you know, have more of a, like break out the different parts to Call of Duty and sell them individually, or should we have like the Battle Royale mode be a thing that's like on its own over here, and then we just kind of update that every year? Because it's like, if they're coming out with a new Call of Duty this year, are they going to have like another Battle Royale mode? Because the way the Battle Royale games work now is they just add new maps. Like they're not coming out with like Fortnite 2, you know what I mean? Like they're not coming out with PUBG 2. So I don't know. There's a lot of discussion around that. Yeah.
So my last example is kind of an interesting example, because I know what bucket we fall into, but with Red Dead Online being in beta forever and just coming out of it now, and the amount of hate that it was getting for Rockstar basically adding more deathmatch showdowns and shit, when all we wanted to do was like fish and hunt and just be cowboys, and they still really haven't added any of that shit into the game. And like, and when you read the comments, everyone's like, this game's fucking Red Dead already, and like, we're done. We haven't played this game in months. Like, it's just weird that Rockstar's like, okay, whatever, we're just gonna keep riding forward, as it were, and keep releasing shit because you know people are gonna play. But everyone's still pissed about not being able to be an actual cowboy in that game, which I'm mad, because that's what the game is. The game should be a cowboy simulator, not another fucking Battle Royale deathmatch game.
And they still never addressed the auto aim, so fuck that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't know. We've talked about Red Dead enough on this podcast. It's not worth going into. None of us are happy with it. That's why none of us are playing it anymore. And you know, maybe in 6 months, a year, 2 years, if they keep updating it, maybe it'll be something worth sticking around with again. But yeah, not happy with it. But
we said the same thing for GTA 5, because we were there forever and they never added the heists or anything else, and we never went back when they eventually did put it in.
Yeah, but that was a thing where it crossed generations too. That was the problem with that. True. I think we all would have like went back to that, but some of you guys went to PS4 immediately. I had PS4 and Xbox, but played more on Xbox, and so like our whole player base was split up. So that's why I think that's ultimately why we never went back to it.
Could be true. So we kind of already talked about the journalism one. Like
Yeah,
we should
like I
just
said,
leave
that's gonna be its own topic at some
Yeah.
point, because I have a lot to say about that.
So over the years, we have no shortage of controversy in the gaming industry, and I think we've had quite a few poor choices in regards to spokespeople who speak for the player base or speak for certain aspects of the gaming industry, and you either love them or hate them, and it sparks so many things, like with Gamergate and like Anita Sarkeesian over the years and stuff like that. But I know there's been some more recent crazy people, as it were, that have been saying some shit, so I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, so there was the producer or whatever from DICE, can't remember his name, tried to look it up real quick, couldn't find it right off the bat. But he was out there saying when there was all that controversy last year about Battlefield 5, and was the game skewing too far into a sort of alternate reality version where you had like the woman running through with like mechanical arm, and I don't know, it just seemed like very sort of weird and out of place for a World War II game. And people had some concerns, some of them really stupid, some of them very valid. But basically the producer was out there, you know, saying all this stuff about, oh, if you don't like the game, don't buy it. And, you know, I just want my daughter to be able to play this game. And, you know, I want her to load up a game and not have to say to me like, Daddy, why isn't there a female playable character in here? And all this stuff. And you know, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not trying to get too much into the social justice angle here, but I'm just saying there's people out there like this guy that was not a very good spokesperson for Battlefield. He definitely didn't do anything to sort of garner fan, you know, I don't know, positivity and sympathy and stuff like that. So that was kind of one example from last year. And then he ended up, you know, leaving the company. He just like pieced out, I think, pretty close to the game about to come out, because he was just like, fuck this shit. He already had like millions of fucking dollars anyway. But the most recent example of this is like the ongoing saga that is fucking Randy Pitchford. Holy fucking Lord, this dude has just been on a roll for the past like 2 months. I swear to God. At first it started with the whole thing with his law. Well, first it started when he was apparently given an advance of like millions of dollars. Is like there was supposed to be a bonus to the Gearbox team and for, you know, Borderlands 3, and so there's people out there saying that he like kept that money from himself and put it into a different fund and didn't actually distribute that amongst the other people that work there. And then there was the whole thing that came out with him and this other co-worker / lawyer that worked with Gearbox, and they had this whole thing where they were kind of going back and forth at each other. And there's this whole thing where a thumb drive at a medieval times that had like company documents and like you know, like really serious game related information on it. And there was also a porno clip of a girl squirting or something like that was like on there, and there was some speculation of whether she was underage. I think it was just people trying to smear him. And then he was on stage when they revealed Borderlands 3, and he said that there's no microtransactions in the game. And it literally came out the same day with some of the journalists and stuff talking to other people on the team that, yeah, there's microtransactions, but they're just cosmetic. I kind of think maybe he misspoke, and like he just kind of was on stage and just didn't say the right thing. I don't think he was really trying to deceive people, but it didn't make him look good. And then like literally just yesterday, I believe, or the day before, he put something up on Twitter that was like a animal cruelty video where there was a crab and a cat. I didn't watch it myself because there was a cat involved. I'm not watching that shit. Where they're like pitted against each other. And he just had some like really cryptic thing to say about how like he has a lot of mixed emotions about watching something like this, but he thinks it's valid or something we should like talk about. I don't know. It was just like phrased in like a really weird way, and people were just absolutely dogpiling him over this shit. But you could even go back all the way to Aliens Colonial Marines and the fucking clusterfuck that was also circled around him. And it's just like everyone's excited for Borderlands 3, but this motherfucker's probably gonna cause some people to not buy the game because he just can't stop being a fucking dickhead about everything. And it's just kind of crazy. So he's definitely, I don't know. He's quite the character. I'll say that though. But man, he's not a very good spokesperson for Gearbox. I don't know, dude. What do you think about Randy Pitchford? Have you followed any of the stuff?
I know some of the stuff that you talked about, and it's just ridiculous because he's fucking loaded. He's got money. He doesn't need to be there anymore. He can basically say whatever he wants. It's like Elon Musk. You know what I mean? Like he can fucking say and do whatever he wants, and it doesn't make any difference because he's already got his money. And it's just a shame.
Yeah, it just like I don't know. It's kind of weird though because I feel like most people that has done the amount of shit that he's done would have been fucking booted from the company. Like it's weird that sort of 2K is just like kind of let him continue to lead that studio over there.
Well, people have been fired for significantly less.
Yeah,
you know.
I don't know. I'm just saying in the days of online outrage that we live in now, like he just seems like someone that would have been fucking axed a long time ago. I don't know.
Who knows what goes on behind the scenes? Maybe the damage control isn't really as bad as it might seem, and they just leave him there, or nobody else wants to replace them. I don't know.
And then the other thing I forgot, because like I said, literally like 8 things have happened with Randy Pitchford in the last month, is the whole thing about the voice actor for Claptrap, the old voice actor. They're apparently going to have a new one because he had a dispute with the old one about pay and all this stuff, and then it came out that that voice actor is saying that Randy Pitchford assaulted him in the lobby of a hotel one time, stuff, and it's just wild, man. Like some of it, I feel like, especially when it came to like the sort of legal thing with him and the ex Gearbox lawyer, some of that seemed like a smear campaign to me. Like some of that didn't seem like accurate. It just seemed like, of course, you're going to say outrageous things about the other person because you're taking them to court. But yeah, I don't know. He's a fucking character, man, and it just seems like that train is not going to stop before Borderlands 3.
Man, I'm a good person. How come I can't make this kind of money? Like, what's wrong with me?
He's a magician, bro. That's what it's all about.
Okay.
He's making that money disappear into his bank account.
All right, let's talk about games releasing unfinished. And
yay!
No yay. There's nothing yay about this shit.
Yeah, no, this is probably my number one on this list of things. Like, this is a huge problem for me. But go ahead, I'll let you start this off.
So sometimes I'm just like, whatever, I'll play the game anyway. But the one game that happens to just piss me off, and I'm still mad about it, is Fallout 76, and how like half-baked that fucking game was. And it's just, wow. And it's still going, and they're still updating it, and they're still adding things. And it's, when I read about the stuff that gets added in, it's like, you guys still kind of miss the point of the game. Like, you guys don't get it. So the game is like a huge failure. And like, I don't know. I think you still have it, and I think you want to revisit it, right?
Maybe one day. I still have it. I should have traded it in before the value of it plummeted, honestly.
That's what I got rid of mine like right away. I only had it for like a week, and I was like, this is no thanks.
I could probably get $350 for it at GameStop. I don't even know if they'd take it, to be honest.
Trade it in on a double credit day.
Okay, I'll get $7 for it.
$7. Yeah. And like, I can't even like just talk about that game like anymore. I can't talk about it. But the other game was Sea of Thieves. When it first came out, we were pretty psyched about it, and we had our fun with it. We've told an awesome story about one of the greatest moments in history, gaming history for us. And it's just, I think now it's kind of where it should have been, but it's almost like early access, you know, where you get people to beta test your fucking game, but they bought it. They paid the full amount for the game, and they're telling you that your game is shit, fix this, fix that, and you're fixing it. And eventually a year later or whenever, the game is where it should have been when it was launched. You know, it's just, I'm just tired of this shit with certain games. Not every game is like this. And like, we're going to talk about Rage 2 later on, but Rage 2 pissed me off. So you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat with that. I have fucking notes galore on how much I hate that game. But
well, I can't wait for that.
We're going to have a back and forth confrontation on that probably. But just like, who the fuck greenlights these games? Who the fuck gets it to a certain point and is like, yeah, just put it out there. We've been building it for 3 years and it's still a piece of shit. We need to get some return on investment. Like, fuck.
Yeah, well, it all comes back to these like quarterly quotas they need to make for investors and like all this shit that fucking ruins everything. And I understand, like, at a certain point, these publishers and stuff can't keep pumping money into these games for like another year or two, but at the same time, an unfinished game is not going to make you any more money than a finished game. You know what I'm saying? And it just keeps happening time and time again, especially if it's like a online games as a service game. I mean, it's just pretty much doomed. Like, Red Dead came out with shit, still shit, probably gonna be shit for a while. Fallout was shit, still gonna be shit for a while. Anthem came out with shit, still gonna be shit for a while.
No Man's Sky,
shit,
remember No Man's Sky? How bad that was? Oh my god.
Yep, that's still a work in progress. I mean, even the Division, they're fucking Division 2, the end game of that just fucking is so bad now. It's so dumb. Like, that was such a near perfect game when it came out. I was so fucking in love with it for that first month and a half or so. God, I could not get enough of that game. But once you hit that wall at the end, man, it's just like, I don't want to fucking play this game at all anymore. And they just have not fucking done anything positive to the end game of that. So I'm pretty much just done for a while on that. But yeah, it's Destiny was shit. Destiny 2 was shit at one point. All this stuff, man, they just keep releasing these games broken and unfinished. And, you know, like I said, if it's a single player game, I'm probably going to buy it. There's not too many examples other than sort of Days Gone recently. When that came out, it has some minor problems at launch that they've been slowly like patching in. So you can't even count on single player games always. But yeah, it's especially the multiplayer side of things. It's really bad. But this is my number one gripe with the games industry right now. It's just not unfinished games, and expecting people to pay $60 for it, $60+ sometimes for some of this shit that's not fucking finished. And that's why I'm just, you know, not really into pre-ordering games that much this year anymore.
Nobody buys a game for it to like mature into this like amazing experience. You know, I don't buy a game for it to be better in 3 years, 2 years, whatever. So I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I'm not going to pretend like I do. I'm sure like there's money involved. I'm sure someone's like, we're hemorrhaging money because it's just the development time's too long. We got to send this out. Or like shareholders are getting pissed, or I don't know. Like, it's just maybe games just take too much manpower and it's just not feasible to always put out a AAA title. You can have humble beginnings and think you're going to be releasing something in 2-3 years time that's going to be amazing when it goes gold, but maybe it's a lot harder than people think, and they miscalculate and there's missteps, or people get fired or leave, or horrible leadership and they don't make the right decisions. I don't know, there's probably a lot of things going on, because when we were kids, when you got a game, that was it wasn't patched, you didn't go get a new version of it. Nothing. You just, if the game was shit, it was shit, and you were just stuck with it. And we all had games that were given to us or bought that were absolute garbage. But games back then are different from what they are now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing about that argument is like I get it, but at the same time, like, games are just totally different. There's way more manpower and shit involved in these games now, and I don't think that's always a valid argument, because I think games are just completely over the top now. So yeah, but that doesn't excuse anything. I don't know. This is just my biggest gripe.
So this kind of goes into early access, and we've kind of mentioned a couple things. So is it good or bad? I think it's good in certain scenarios for developers that might have a small development team, or it's just one person working on a game. They're not going to have like a people to test it for quality controls or to just like come up with stuff. So I could see early access being good for like the smaller indie titles, but for like Bethesda to put out like Fallout 76 and expect everyone to play it and beta test it for them, because it wasn't even beta. Like, I felt like the game was like in between alpha and beta when they released it. It was just, it wasn't there. And Sea of Thieves had like the sandbox aspect, but it was missing tons of content. And it's like, oh, well, we'll release that later. It's just, I don't.
Yeah, well, part of the problem too is that like there's no realistic timeline for when these things are actually done. And like even though some of these developers will sort of give you a roadmap, as it were, for what they plan on doing, it seems like a lot of these games like that are in early access and have been for years. Like, there's a lot of hype around them. Like, I just remember when DayZ came out. And I mean, I haven't looked into that game in a while, but I remember just like the game never became what it was supposed to. So everyone that got like invested in that, even after it was officially released, it still was not done. And so some of these things just like trail off. Like, once people lose interest and the player base dies down, like the game never becomes what was promised in the first place. You know what I mean?
Well, the players have had time to play the game, so they're already exhausted with what you gave them. So what's adding like one or two new things 3 months later going to do to the player base? It's not going to reinvigorate it. People are going to... You need to get them invested like day one so that they stay. And it has to be like the best product you can have. Not like over time. Over time, we're going to fix it. We're going to build it up. You're going to lose people. Not many people are going to jump into a game that's 5 years old. And not many people stay around.
I'm sure there's some examples. Like, I'm not really close to this one, but I just remember hearing about it at the time. Like, whenever Final Fantasy 14 came out, and they like just completely rebuilt the entire game. And then people loved it after they did that. Like, I don't remember the timeline for... you know, the initial release, and then when they like kind of shut it down, it was like, we'll come back with something better. And then they came back and everyone loved it. That's the only kind of like example I've seen. There was a lot more interest in No Man's Sky once they started adding the updates. I remember a bunch of people started picking it up again last year. But yeah, there's not too many like positive stories about this working out in the long term for a lot of these games, of just like 3 years later, this is finally the game you all wanted.
Like, there's already 3 years worth of other great games that we're playing or haven't gotten to yet. So you missed the boat. You know what I mean? Like, you've been washed away. You're gone. You're done. You missed your opportunity.
Yeah. Other than the VR update to No Man's Sky, I have like zero interest in ever going back to that game. But like I said, the VR would be pretty fun to just fuck off on these planets in virtual reality. But the only example I have, because I'm not the type of person that really gets involved with these. Like, I never really crowdfunded but one or two games. And I never really got involved in the sort of early access stuff too much. DayZ was one of the only ones I ever did. And then the other one was Wreckfest.
I was looking forward to that game too.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not worth playing, but it's kind of, this is like a weird example. I saw that game like all throughout its development cycle. Like, I played it very early on. Like, I didn't jump into the initial wave of funding for it. It wasn't until they actually put it on, I can't remember if it was when they put it on Steam and you could actually just pay for it. I think it was maybe when I jumped in. But I played the earlier versions of it, and to be honest with you, I liked the physics and the feel of it earlier on. Like, I felt as they kept refining it, like it kind of lost the thing that made it really special. Because, I mean, I still have screenshots of it on my computer when I was playing the earlier versions, and like just the car physics and stuff are way more fun. Like, it was what you wanted from one of these games, like just T-boning a car and he goes flying up in the air, fucking debris everywhere. It's totally the Destruction Derby flat out thing that you wanted. And I don't know, as they sort of refined the sort of mechanics and the car physics, like everything felt more weighty. And like, you just didn't, by the time it came out, like I felt like you couldn't have these like epic wrecks and stuff. It just seemed more like a generic racer. I mean, you could still get in wrecks, and maybe it's just the initial class of cars that you could play with aren't like beefy and fast enough for you to really get some like epic wrecks. But it was a weird case where I just liked it better, like the earlier version. Like, I wish I could play that earlier build of the game, because I just found it way more fun. It was exactly what I wanted from that type of game. And so I don't know, maybe you'll pick it up on a Steam sale or something else at one point. It's not a bad game. It just, like I said, had I maybe not ever played the earlier version by the time it came out. And it was also one of those things where I didn't even know they were still making it, because I had pre-ordered that or bought the early version of it, the early access version of it, like I want to say like 2012 or 2013, and they just did the official release of it last year. And I didn't even know they were still making it, to be honest, because I would get emails periodically about like updates to it. And so I was legitimately shocked when they said the game was like officially releasing. I'm like, oh, you guys are still making this 4 or 5 years later? Like, who gives a shit about this anymore? You know what I mean?
Okay, we mentioned this many times before. It pisses me the fuck off. It's all these goddamn open world, endless activity simulators that just never end. It's just, there's more shit on the map to do, and it doesn't amount to anything. There's no value. It feels very lazy in terms of game design. You have like an 8-hour campaign, and then you have 8,000 activities on the fucking map, and almost every game is doing this now, and it's just driving me up the fucking wall.
Yeah, the problem is like I love open world games. That's my favorite genre. But even I'm getting a little bit exhausted with some of this stuff. Like I would be fine with it if people would just have like a reasonable amount of shit. Like this Assassin's Creed is the worst offender. Like I'm probably already just going to bounce off Odyssey because it's just too much shit. It's just too much. And like can I just like do an open world game that I can complete in like 30, 40 hours? Like I'd be fine with that. But not this like 100 to 200 hours. Like maybe if it's something like The Witcher or like Cyberpunk 2077, like a special game like that you want like a lot of content that you know is probably going to be valuable. You know, like The Witcher 3 had a shit ton of content. It took me 200 hours to do everything in that game, but I loved all of it. It's just when it's this bolted on, like just repetitive, go take over this base now, go clear out this fucking thing. It just gets kind of boring. Like, go collect this. Like, if it's meaningful side missions and side stories and quests that sort of, add to the world building and stuff and add character and flavor to everything, like, I'm okay with that. But a lot of this is just, let's put as much fucking shit in here so people won't, if people feel like they're getting the $60 value of the game and they won't just rent it or buy it and trade it back in immediately.
Well, like I said earlier, Rage 2, I'm going to vent about it, but Rage 2 is a huge offender when it comes to this. There's
I actually don't agree. I mean, I do to a certain, I think it's a little bit more reasonable than most open world games.
Okay.
Like you can do everything in under like 40 or 50 hours.